Here's the story most people get. And here's where it completely falls apart. In 1974, the US cut a deal with Saudi Arabia. Sell your oil in dollars only. In return, we give you military protection. Saudi Arabia agrees. Every other OPEC nation follows. Overnight, the entire world needs dollars to buy energy. That demand props up the dollar, funds US debt, and locks in American financial dominance for 50 years. That's real. That happened. Now, here's what people get wrong. There was no formal, signed pact to begin with. What actually existed was a joint bilateral commission on economic cooperation, an informal arrangement where the Saudis recycled oil revenues into US Treasury bonds. On June 9, 2024, that 50-year understanding expired without renewal. Saudi Arabia didn't announce a dramatic break. They simply stopped showing up to renew the handshake. The practical consequence: Saudi Arabia can now sell oil in multiple currencies, Chinese yuan, euros, yen, and is even exploring digital currencies as potential settlement options. But here's where it gets interesting, and where most commentary gets lazy. Saudi Arabia actually froze its BRICS membership bid in late 2024, signaling real caution about how fast to move. This isn't a clean defection from the dollar system. It's strategic hedging. The Saudis are keeping one foot in each world, and that tells you something important. They're not confident the alternatives are ready yet. So what are the alternatives? China's digital yuan is now integrated into 29 bilateral trade corridors. Even France, a G7 nation and traditional US ally, finalized an LNG deal with China in yuan in early 2024. That one mattered, because it proved de-dollarization isn't just a BRICS phenomenon anymore. But here's the paradox nobody talks about. If the yuan became a true global reserve currency, China would lose its trade surplus advantage. China's entire economic model depends on a weaker yuan. So China doesn't actually want to replace the dollar. It wants to make the dollar optional, to create parallel channels it controls, outside of US sanctions reach. The dollar still accounts for 88% of forex transactions. But China's payment system, CIPS, processed the equivalent of $14 trillion in transactions. What looks like a small share is closer to 13% when you account for what's moving outside Western systems. Petrodollar recycling meant oil-rich nations reinvested dollar profits into US Treasury bonds, creating a permanent buyer for American debt. If that cycle slows, borrowing costs rise. Those costs flow downstream into mortgage rates, car loans, and corporate debt. Central banks bought over 2,000 tons of gold in 2023 and 2024 combined, the fastest accumulation since World War I. When central banks move like that, they're not speculating. They're hedging against a system they no longer fully trust. The petrodollar isn't dying in a crash. It's eroding in slow motion. The question isn't whether this happens, it's whether you understand it before the effects reach your cost of living.